right, so the last one is probably predictably going to be a shit show, but it is the last one. So
All
after this,
right.
we're done.
All right,
And
great.
it's going to be a character known as Infrared. He's probably most famous for basically having very passionate debates. I think is the most tactful way to
Wonderful.
put that. And then just to clarify my position, because this was actually something that I think that Lauren and I differentiate. I'll be really quick. Basically, I absolutely think it's especially in America because we have such a unique constitution. It's absolutely the government's responsibility to educate people on civic virtues and civic processes. And then also when it comes to immigrants, regardless of their whether or not they're legal or illegal, if they go to American schools, they have to learn our system. They have to learn how to integrate, and that's kind of how I deal with that. But Lauren and I can set up our own debate and fight about that later. And then Samantha, if you're ready, go ahead and bring in Infrared. Let's do it.
Hey,
I
I
think
can't hear you, man.
Hello?
I think you might. Yeah, we can hear you now, bud.
Hey, what's up? What's
Awesome.
up? What's up, everybody? So, Lauren Southern, that's your name?
That is my name. And yours?
Okay, what's
Infrared.
up?
I'm pretty
What's
sure
up?
Infrared isn't your
Okay,
name.
let's get right down to business. So, I'm hearing you're a libertarian?
Sure, I can be a libertarian for you.
Okay, I like that. All right, anyway, I was just trying to make the case to you because I actually agree with libertarians and conservatives about a lot of things, especially where it stands in regards to like who they consider their enemies, which is like the US deep state and imperialism and stuff like that. Would you agree with that?
That my enemy is the US deep state and imperialism?
Well, like that's well not just that, but like all like the monopolies, the corruption, the institutions, the special favors. Like not necessarily
I'm
like a
not a fan of
person.
any of that stuff. No, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
like
that's what
that
I'm
stuff
saying,
very
right?
much.
Yeah, so
Sure.
I guess the only thing that I kind of get confused about is like why don't libertarians ally themselves with like global forces of anti-imperialism who also share the same enemies
Such as?
like China, Russia, Cuba, other kinds of countries, anti-imperialist countries?
Well, I think that China is a far cry from what a libertarian wants to ally itself with
Are you sure
in
about
their
that?
own actions against their people.
Are you sure
I mean,
about that?
yeah, they've got a very. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. First of all, I'll just correct you. I'm actually a conservative, not a libertarian, but I do have sympathies towards them. But why should they ally with China? Do tell me.
Sure. First and foremost, China is a very libertarian and conservative country. When it comes to like big corporations and it comes to like, big institutions, yeah, the government is very heavy-handed in making sure that they serve the interests of the people. When it comes to the
Uh huh.
people on the ground, like in markets and whatever, the government is very much pro people in its policy. It has low taxes, if any taxes at all. It lets people kind of govern themselves in their local communities. It's kind of like a more hands-off approach. It has a very kind of tinkerer culture where people like basically go to the market and they buy the parts for
Hmm.
technologies and phones themselves. It's not like here where everything is like corporate and streamlined. So there's a lot of really cool libertarian aspects of Chinese culture itself. The second thing is that China is committed to ending the reign of American unipolar global imperialism, which also domestically manifests itself in the form of increasing tyrannies and the stripping away of civil liberties and going against the U.S. Constitution domestically. Now, China obviously doesn't have a kind of liberal constitutional system, but it does have its own system. And as far as America specifically is concerned, it's very clear that the government has gone above and beyond the bounds granted and afforded to it by the American Constitution and by the government. So I guess I'm trying to say is that I think in America, a lot of libertarians and Ron Paul people and conservatives should really study the history of communism if they want an example of how to actually win.
Okay, so I wouldn't deny that there are like global forces like Russia and China that are pushing back on some bad aspects of Western governments that conservatives and libertarians would absolutely critique. But to me, allying yourself with China as a libertarian would be like doing heroin before you get in a fist fight. Sure, it'll probably, or crack or something. It'll probably make you really brave, loosen you up. You're going to be absolutely psycho. No one wants to fight a crack addict in an alley, but then you're addicted to crack after, right? So you got a bit of a problem. Like how many journalists are jailed in China right now? I think they've got the world record right now for at least 2020. Here's the example. So we've got all these problems with the deep state, with monopolies, corruption in government. Great. We team up with China. We go and we get rid of all of that. And then we've got China in power. And if they've got corruption, they've got a deep state, they've got monopolies they're propping up. We go to criticize them and we end up in jail.
Well, no, first of all, to be fair, there's two things. One, you don't do that because you're not Chinese and it's not really any of your business, right? As a libertarian, you should understand the concept of national sovereignty. The second thing is that regarding this, you mentioned a lot of things. Regarding this business of journalists being in jail in China, I would appreciate if you actually pointed to specific instances, but you have to understand that China is a country besieged globally by the international forces of imperialism and America. So the China being in a state of siege and having a strong sense of national security against these enemies is not the same as just silencing journalists for no reason. And as you know, here in America, we have Julian Assange. Now, you mentioned something about monopolies in China, but the difference between America and China is that if there's monopolies in China, it's nowhere near close to here because China has a very strong domestic culture of small businesses, which monopolies have not been able to eliminate. Actually, the monopolies that might exist in China, like the tech monopolies like Alibaba, help facilitate the culture of small businesses and independent economic initiative on part of Chinese citizens. So it's a completely very different system that is tailored to ultimately serving the common good of the people.
Sure.
The only difference with the American system as it was intended is that it includes the economy and it factors in the economy into the common good as well. Whereas the American system seems to be more about negative rights, right? But overall, there are different systems, and you don't have to agree with everything about the Chinese system. You don't have to want to import the Chinese system to America. Obviously, I don't think anyone, even the Chinese, would agree with that. It's necessary. But ultimately, I don't see why a spirit of friendship can't be cultivated between the American people who are fighting against the state ruling over them and the peoples of the world who are fighting just to get this state off their back. It's not a war to implement systems over other people. It's a war to get these people off their backs. So I don't see...
Okay, this is where we're going to disagree. I'm not some stereotype archetype of like some libertarian who's just going to scream and say China evil, everything they did. No, I recognize there are positive aspects of China. And even while I can disagree with the methods they go about implementing their policies, China has become a superpower for a reason. And this mix of very hard controlled by government, everyone has to go in the one direction. We're not going to have this 4-year cycle where we just ping pong the goals we have as a nation, has been extremely beneficial to pushing their country forward. And obviously they are becoming an economic powerhouse. Man, where was I going with this? But this idea that China is not potentially a threat to Western countries and they just want Western countries off their back, as if they are not currently paying off political parties, as if they do not currently have spies in America, as if they are not currently taking land every single year in the South China Sea, something that is readily observable, certainly by Australians who have been dealing with this issue for a while. They've got something that what's it called? The road that they're building right now through Africa, through all across the Middle East and Africa. They are currently becoming a powerhouse, buying land all over the places, buying out political parties, and the idea that they won't seize political power that becomes available to them, whether it be just because they have so much economic control over Western countries. I highly recommend people read the book Silent Invasion. It's by an Australian author who's actually quite left-wing on how China has basically bought out all of New Zealand. And if they wanted to, they could collapse the country in an instant just through economic power. The idea that they are not an expanding nation and just want to be left alone is absurd, in my opinion.
Well, hold on. Two things. One, you mentioned something about the South China Sea.
Yep.
Why should Americans care about the South China Sea?
I'm not saying
It's the
Americans
South
should.
China Sea.
That's an Australian issue.
It's not really. I mean, Australia is kind of a fake country anyway, so I mean, I don't see.
Well, no, the reason they should care is because Australia has actually had land battles in World War II with, like, Japan. They were bombed in Darwin and in Sydney Harbor. And if China becomes powerful enough, and if there is a global war that happens, they are going to be affected.
Listen.
And the South China Sea has been that buffer state, or that buffer area for them.
But Australia has no claim to the South China Sea, which was historically belonging to the Qing Empire. But that's just the first thing. The second thing is that you're talking about China, I don't know, buying land in countries. Well, it's not China's fault. It's the fault of the Western countries themselves for having a system. Well, if you're going to be a free market capitalist, then if foreigners want to buy your land, they're going to buy your land.
I'm not a total free market capitalist. I'm not.
You can't. Okay, that's fine. You can't blame China for doing the best that it can do in the situation it's in. If Western people want a different system and they don't want foreigners to buy their land and they want to do people first systems and they don't want corruption where foreign agents can buy off their government, they can do that, and China will engage in bilateral deals with them. I mean, China doesn't care about what kind of government you have. They will be very amicable. You know, it's like in Africa, for example. China works out deals with countries, the governments of Africa, based on what the governments of Africa, what the lines in the sand that they draw, and it's what it is. In Greece, after the left-wing Syriza party came into power, they were going to sell a port. The previous Greek government was going to sell a port to the Chinese, and the Greeks were getting ripped off. So the Greeks went to the Chinese and they said, "Hey, we want these worker protections." They gave them all these demands, and the Chinese said, "Okay, that's fine. I mean, if that's what you want, that's fine." I mean, like, you can't blame the Chinese when it's clearly just the fault of these corrupt
at
Western
what point
governments.
did I blame them? You're saying we should ally with the Chinese, and I'm saying that's going to become a problem itself if they end up ruling and being in charge of Western nations through, whether it be gray zone warfare, because they've bought things out so much, they have so much political power that they're de facto rulers of our nation, something that the US absolutely does to other countries, and which I could see the frustrations of the people who live in said countries having. But, like, I'm not understanding.
Well,
we can admit, absolutely, we would probably do the same things in China's position. Like, we could say that would be good for your nation, that will give you power, you would do the same thing. Why are you blaming them? You cannot blame them for doing that and say, I don't really want to be a part of a Chinese empire.
Wait, hold on. The China is not breaking the laws of these Western countries. The reason China can buy land in New Zealand and Australia.
When did I say they were? Like, you're arguing
I'm just saying, like, if you want to have people-oriented governments, that's your problem. It's not China's problem to create.
I didn't say it was China. None of this is China's problem.
And that's adding to my broader. It's adding to my broader point. If you stopped believing in the lies of the very same imperialist government that you claim to oppose and you claim is against conservative values and the liberties of the American people, you would see that countries like China, not just China, would be very open to a level of cooperation with truly, authentically patriotic Americans who just want their own country and they don't want to interfere in the business of other countries. Now, the question
all right, let's skip through the bullshit. How much is the paycheck? How much are they paying you, and how much do I get if I sign up for this?
I mean, I'm not getting paid anything, as I genuinely believe this. Yeah, I wish they would pay me. I mean, I hope they could pay me one day, but yeah, they're not.
All right. Well, hey, we're rolling up on time. I did let that run an extra couple of minutes just because Infrared, your reputation precedes you.
I think we will have many more chats in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. Let's chat again.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you, bud. Thanks for coming out.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye. Yo, she was probably so confused. Like, what the fuck? Oh my God.